Welcome to another episode of Dallas Social Toastmasters. Again, we are back in the distancing mode. I am your Zoom facilitator for the evening. And if you have any issues, you can reach out to me via private chat here on Zoom, or you can also send me a text if you have my text, if you have my phone number, and WhatsApp also, reach out to me there if you need to. But I believe that we all have been doing this for a while and we are familiar with it. I will go over a couple of things just to be sure. One is when you're speaking, obviously make sure that you take yourself off mute. When you are finished speaking, please make sure that you put yourself back on mute. This will help to eliminate any distractions, any video coming in when somebody else is speaking. Makes things a lot smoother during our meeting. We will have some portions of our meeting where we have a timer timing things. And if you can't see the timer on your screen, you may want to pin the timer. And to pin your timer, you're going to need to click on the three little dots on their square that's up in this corner over here. And click on that and it'll give you an option to pin the timer. And that will keep the timer on your screen while you are speaking so that you can see when they flash the green, the yellow, and the red backgrounds. Bottom line, though, make sure that they're on the screen so that you can see that as you're speaking. Our agenda for this evening can be found on our website, DallasSocialToastmasters.com. So that's here. And you can see over on the right-hand side, there's a link that says Current Agenda. And if you click on that, it will take you to the agenda for the evening, which Mark had pulled up and provided for us a little bit earlier. So again, that's at DallasSocialToastmasters.com. On the right-hand side of the homepage, under Club Agenda, Member section, and then Current Agenda. At this point, before we actually get to, I want to see, Mr. President, did you need to step in and say anything before the meeting starts? Because I'm going to give the pledge here in a moment.
No problem.
Okay, thank you, sir. So if you're so inclined, I would ask you to please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. You can see my flag right there. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. At this point, I will introduce our Toastmaster for the evening. Please help me to welcome Mr. Mark Schroeder. Take it away, Mark.
Thank you so much, Rob. Give me just one quick second here as I try to sort out and unravel a headphone which is tied in a knot. There we go. Much better. All right, tonight I called the meeting title, "The software said Windows 10 or better, so I installed Linux." It's really not going to be quite about why Linux is better, however. What I really wanted to talk to you about, how many of you have old computers that are no longer good enough to run Windows? I think we all, if you had two computers, the second one is probably old enough that you can't run Linux, can't run Windows on it anymore. Because quite frankly, Windows is a pig. And I'm going to make an argument tonight for trying to run Linux on it. Now, all of you are going, oh my God, Linux, what is that? Maybe I've heard of that. That's a scientific thing and engineers use. People use that. And I'm going to show you a little bit tonight of what Linux looks like. If I said the same thing about iOS, that you're going to have to run iOS on your phone, you'd go, oh my God, except you've been doing it. It's on your iPhone. Said the same thing about Android on Samsung. You are running an operating system, and as long as it's user-friendly enough, there's no real difficulty in using it. So I want to show you just a little bit of what Linux looks like. Let me start by, I'm going to do a quick share. We will start, of course, with the agenda. And you'll notice there's a little penguin up in the upper corner. That's called Tux. Tux is the mascot for Linux. And it turns out that Tux is just a really, really cute mascot. I even have one of him stuffed that I can take to bed with me anytime I feel like it. So he is the mascot for Linux. And if you ever see that logo, that is exactly what it is referring to. With regard to Linux, let's go start doing a little bit of that. I'm going to do it a little bit of a weird way. I'm bringing over a window here. If you were to install Linux on your laptop, this is what you would see. You would see a login screen with your name on it. And once I get logged in, I'm going to full screen it so that it'll be the only thing and it'll look exactly like your screen. But because I'm doing it here, I have to start here on a separate window. So let me go ahead and I'm going to log myself in. While I'm doing this, what I'm going to tell you is that I'm picking a particular desktop for Linux that is not the default, not the normal one, but I picked this one for two reasons. I picked it because it is one that will work on older laptops and still be really snappy and really responsive. And it's also one that if you're used to Windows, it's going to seem a lot more familiar to you than starting with something different. The first thing that you're going to notice real quickly is, let me go ahead and maximize this. And it's going to be like that. And sadly, it does mess up usually with on this one, it doesn't automatically go to the edges. So there we go. Now I got it all the way to the edges. This is what it would look like if you were to install it on your screen. You have the icons up in the upper left-hand side, and you've got your desktop. So up here, you have things like files. You've got Firefox. A lot of you are familiar with Firefox. This is Chromium. Chromium is something very much like Chrome, the Chrome editor, Google Chrome. The only difference is this does not contain all of the Google supplied extensions and hooks into Chrome. Google Chrome is available as well. I just did not install that one. And we have some other icons here. I'm going to go through each of them really, really quickly. But you have three ways you can get to things. You can either pin them up here in the taskbar at the top. They are on a menu, so that you can click a menu here. And if I go down to, for instance, Internet, you will notice under Internet, I've got my two browsers right there. I've also got some other programs that are not pinned up there. So there's more than is shown. The third way, of course, is you pin it to the desktop, which a lot of people do in Windows right here, so that you can just click on it here and start it here. Now you say, that doesn't look like Windows. That's at the top. Don't like it at the top? Go to the properties, tell it you'd rather have it at the bottom. And then it comes up just like your start menu in Windows. Nice and easy. I'm going to go ahead and put it back at the top just because that's what I'm used to. So once you're here, you think you could use this? How do you start a browser? There you go. That's going to start your browser. And all I have to do something like, let's say CNN.com. And there you go. You got it. Don't like that? Want to use Chrome instead? We go to Chrome. And it's the same sort of thing. Right there. I have them in the smaller window mode. You want to put it in full window mode, you have these icons up here. That gives you a full size. I'm going to take it back into the smaller one, but this one minimizes it. If I minimize it, it then shows up down here, and all I have to do is bring it back up the same way you would do in the Windows taskbar. You just click them down there to bring them up and down. That's all you got to do. All right, so let me minimize both of those. You say, what else can we do with this? Well, I mentioned that we could also do menu and Internet and go to Chromium, and there it is. So that works as well and brings up another copy. Same with this, is just double clicking on that. You remember Notepad? Does anybody ever use Notepad? This is an equivalent of Notepad called gedit. And here, this is just text. Text. And by just text, I mean, you don't get to format it. There's no fonts, no bulleting. If you want to do bullets, you got to do dash dash and stuff like that. It's just like Notepad for all practical purposes. It makes a .txt file if you've ever used one of those. Document files? Well, let's go look at a file browser real quick. So I'll go to a file browser. I'm going to go into where I've downloaded a few things. So let's go ahead and we'll minimize that just to get it out of the way. Here's a doc file. It happens to be one of our agendas. Guess what? This is something that looks very much like and has the same functionality as Word. There are differences. I will tell you, if I take this and print it, and I go to Word, open the exact same file and print it, and I try to hold both of them up to the light, they're not going to be identical. That is not guaranteed. It is very possible you might have a 2-page resume on Word that if you open it here, it's going to be 2 pages and a couple of lines. That kind of thing does happen. But you can definitely make Word here. You can make a Word document here, and you can save it as a PDF, and that PDF will be compatible with everybody else's. What about, let's say, PowerPoint? Some of you may remember this one. This was Anne's PowerPoint presentation. And as you can see, most of her PowerPoint presentation is still here. Oops. I think this page may have formatted just a little differently. I think this word might have ended up on the previous line in her copy. I'm not sure. So there may be some minor formatting differences, but you can certainly make PowerPoint slides on this version of Linux as well. Also, here's a good example of a spreadsheet. It's got a spreadsheet program. Again, maybe not 100% compatible if you use all of the macros and all of the weird facilities that are available on Windows, but you can definitely make a spreadsheet and you can send these to people and they can still open it. So just wanted to give you an idea of what all is here. There is a ton of stuff. If you're also used to having a DOS prompt, this is the equivalent of a DOS prompt, where you can just do the same sort of things that you can do in a DOS prompt. Or see where I am, CD to the documents or downloads, and see what's in it. So just depending upon what you're doing, just wanted to show you that this is really very user-friendly. You also have things like, I'll bring up this one. This is another good one. The editing program, the picture editing program that I used. Here's the picture editing program. And all I have to do, for instance, is select a small area of the photo and then go image crop. So you have full photo editing capabilities. You've also got the equivalent for movies and for audio, all available on this kind of a platform. Nice, easy to use. And the feature, let me tell you what the biggest feature is. Free, 100% free. This is, the joke is that Linux is like sex. It's better when it's free. And Linux is free. You can go download a copy, put it on a CD, put it on any machine that you want to put it on for free. No licenses, no royalty fees, nothing. I'm going to go ahead and close some of these out. I'll just go ahead and close them real quick. And I think I can even right click and just do a close from here. I can. The other thing that is worth noting, let me go ahead and take this out of full screen mode. If you happen to forget the magic to do it, you just go down here and do view, take it out of full screen mode, and then I can move it to the other side. That's, again, that's only because of the way I'm showing it to you here. But the other thing that's interesting about this is, I'm gonna have to move this out of the way because that's not, yeah, good enough. What does it take to run it? A 2 gigahertz dual processor. I don't know how old that is, but that's pretty old. 4 gigabytes of RAM. If you had a machine that was ever running Windows, it's got at least 4 gigabytes of RAM. 4 gigabytes of RAM right now in Windows is painful. 25 gigs a disk. How long has it been since you've had a disk with only 25 gig on it? VGA, you don't even have to have HDMI. Do you need a CD or a USB port to get it installed? And that's about it. And internet access is helpful if you want to do a lot of the stuff with the browsers. So this will run on a lot of older machines and run very efficiently and give you a few years back from the machines that you are otherwise going to throw in the trash. All right, with that, we will go ahead and we'll talk to our duty holders. First duty holder tonight is going to be our timer Dagan Newland, sorry. If you would, Dagan, please tell us what you're going to be doing for your duty tonight.
All right, as I said I'm the timer tonight, so I'll be timing different sections of the meeting. I'll be the prepared speakers, table topic speakers, and the evaluators besides me. So somebody can think of who's going to be timing me, let me know later. But for the speakers, both of our prepared speeches are 5 to 7 minutes today. So at the 5-minute mark, they will get the green. 6-minute mark, they'll get the yellow, and 7, they'll get the red, and have 30 seconds to wrap up. And on table topics, you get 1 to 2 minutes. So you'll get the green at 1, 1.5 yellow, 2 red, and you'll have 30 seconds to wrap up. But again, for table topics, you must hit the green mark. So, and for evaluations, it's 2 to 3 minutes. So you get the green at 2, yellow at 2.5, and red at 3, and have 30 seconds to wrap up. So remember, prepared speakers and evaluators have a 30-second leeway on either side, whereas table topics, you must hit the 1 minute mark, and you have a 30-second leeway on the inside. And I will give my report when called upon. Back to you, Toastmaster.
Thank you so much, Dagan. Our next duty holder is Rob Giles. Rob, you have both posture and our counter. Please go ahead and describe your duties for us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Toastmaster. First, as your posture monitor, I will be looking for any distracting gestures or posture, as well as anything that enhances or benefits what you are presenting. Things that you may try to avoid doing that may be distracting to the audience are scratching your face, playing with your clothes, anything that is on the screen that may detract from what you are trying to say or present. Things that may benefit or enhance you, uses of fingers for counting, exaggerations with your hands when you're trying to exaggerate something, things along those lines. I've seen a lot of people use their hand as a phone when they're talking about using the phone or talking to somebody on the phone. Things along those lines will enhance your points that you're trying to make as you speak. I will keep a report throughout the meeting, and I will give a report for that when called upon toward the end of the meeting by the general evaluator. I also have the counter role, in which case I will be listening for any crutch words. That would be ahs, ums, long pauses. So we use a lot. So I'll be looking for those things. And as I hear them, I will be taking notes for everybody throughout the meeting. And I will give a report regarding those at the end of the meeting or toward the end of the meeting when called upon by the general evaluator. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
All right, thank you so much, Rob. Mark Sims is our vote counter tonight. Mark, what will you be doing for us as vote counter?
I will be taking votes for up to 4 different categories, that being the best speaker, best evaluator, best table topics, and best of the big 3. So after those competitions, assuming everyone qualifies, everyone in the club can send me via private chat your selection for who did the best job. I'll tabulate the votes. And then in the event of the tie, we'll silently break the tie and then announce the results when called upon at the end of the meeting. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you so much, Mark. The final role is grammarian. Grammarian is being performed by Karen Lee. Karen, tell us what you'll be doing.
Mr. Toastmaster, fellow club members, my duty as a grammarian is to pick the word of the day and to also listen for interesting uses of the English language and make notes and give a report when called upon. I chose the word of the day, which is to be used in table topics, is wayworn, which means travel weary. And using it in a sentence, I am wayworn after my appointments yesterday. I found this word when I was doing Scrabble to go on my phone. So wayworn, travel weary, please use in table topics. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you so much, Karen. All right, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and begin our prepared speeches tonight. We have 2 speakers, which means we also have 2 evaluators. And of course, we have table topics. Karen will be back doing that for us later as well. Our first speaker tonight is going to be Justin Faust. Justin's evaluator is Mark Sims. Mark, please tell us what Justin's goals are for tonight.
Justin tonight is speaking.
Oh dear, he's locked up.
And he froze.
And he froze.
Oh, he's back.
He's
I
back.
can, okay, can y'all hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's funny. I didn't see the freeze, but apparently y'all did. I promise you I wasn't doing that just to get a reaction. And the goals of this speech project are for the speaker to identify his or her leadership style, and then to share some aspect of his leadership style or leadership styles in general. Speech needs to be well organized, and it can be at the speaker's discretion, whether it's humorous, whether it's simply factual, or any other format that Justin wants. So please help me welcome Justin Faust, speaking on leadership styles, Justin Faust.
All right, thank you so much. Justin, are you ready and prepared to go?
Yes, I guess sorry, Tan. My question, where is the
Your timer is Dagan Newland.
timer? Yeah,
Right? Yeah, Dagan Newland. Make sure you have him pinned.
okay. Let me get him pinned. Okay,
All right, everyone, please welcome Justin Faust with his speech entitled Leadership Styles. Leadership Styles, Justin Faust.
thank you, Toastmasters, Mark. So you have to be, as a leader, you have to be very self-aware. It's very important to be self-aware of your strengths and your weaknesses and what you bring to a team. You have to focus on your strengths, but also know your weaknesses and what's important to bring to a team to bring out the best in the team. So I took an evaluation, and my strengths were pace setting, democratic, and authoritative. So pace setting, what is pace setting? Pace setting is a leader that embraces new projects. He embraces speed of new projects, and he also embraces and focuses on productivity of the team. So I've currently took on a new leadership role. I will be a Scrum Master, and I will incorporate this in my Scrum Master role. I will try to be an example to the team. The pace setting leadership style brings forth, he leads by example. And I would try to lead by example and focus on the overall project, the end goal of the project. My second is democratic. My second style is democratic. A democratic leadership style tries to empower other members of the team. This is extremely important in Scrum and Agile. We try to make the team self-organizing. Therefore, this aspect of my leadership style can really help out. I do not micromanage my teams. I empower others to lead others. Authoritative. I am focused on the long-term goal of the team and the vision, and I am capable of making decisions for my team. I will bring this aspect of knowing the long-term vision of my team on my Scrum team. Now, it's very, very important to be self-aware of your strengths, but it's almost as important to be aware of your weaknesses. And my 3 weaknesses is bureaucratic, innovative, and altruistic. So what is bureaucratic? A bureaucratic leader tends to focus on the minute details and tries to bring the team to follow certain rules, kind of like a micromanager. This is not my style. I'm more of a lead by example and empower the team. But this is also important to incorporate following the rules of Scrum. Following the rules of Scrum are very important. Although it's a lightweight framework, it's important that the team embody certain aspects of Scrum and Agile while developing the project. The second thing I need to work on is being innovative. Now, this is extremely important in Scrum. Being an innovative leader is being agile, and being agile is being Scrum. You have to be able to adapt to new data when it is presented. Therefore, I would incorporate this as a Scrum Master, and any new data that I am given, I will be sure to incorporate it in the next sprint or incorporate it in sprint planning. This is an extremely important part of being a Scrum Master, is being innovative, being able to adapt, being able to change quickly. My third weakness is altruistic. An altruistic leader really cares about the overall feeling and the community of the team, bringing forth a environment which the team is very comfortable. This is extremely important to Scrum. Although the overall goal of Scrum is producing a very good product, the team needs to be able to have a comfortable environment and be able to work together efficiently and effectively to create a better product. It is extremely important as a leader, a Scrum Master, a servant leader, to be aware of your strengths and your weaknesses and be able to communicate effectively what you bring to a team. This is why I am aware of my strengths and what I bring to a team, but also I am aware of what my weaknesses are and what I need to work on to be a better leader in my Scrum team. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Justin. Sorry, I was on mute there for a second. I appreciate in particular trying not to over-bias your evaluator, the personal disclosure there. All the personal examples I thought were very, very good. Let's see, our next speaker is going to be Lee King. Lee's evaluator is Dagan Newland. Dagan, if you're not able to time or don't feel like you want to do both, I'm set up and ready to go. It's up to you.
Oh, I can do both.
Okay, I'll let you go ahead and do both. Maybe I'll time you during your evaluation itself.
Yeah, I need somebody to time me though.
I'll do it during that then.
Okay.
All right, so everyone please welcome Lee King with his speech entitled Mentoring, Lee King.
Hold on, I think isn't Dagan supposed to?
I thought I was going to do the thing.
My bad. Sorry, Dagan, go ahead and tell us what Lee's goals are. I got ahead of myself.
All right, so Lee is the purpose of his project is for the member to clearly define how Toastmaster envisions mentoring. It's also the purpose of the speech is for the member to share some aspect of a previous experience as a protege. So we're going to be talking about mentoring today, and it's 5 to 7 minutes. Back to you, Toastmaster.
All right, thank you so much. Now, this is going to sound like deja vu, but you really have gone through it before. Please now welcome Lee King with his speech entitled Mentoring, Lee King.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters. Tonight I'm going to talk to you a little bit about mentoring and the reason why Toastmasters promotes mentoring within the organization and among members. So for those of you that are more familiar with the Toastmasters education program, some of this might seem a little familiar, while others of you who are newer to the program might learn something a little bit new. To start with, whenever we talk about mentoring, there are two people that are involved in the mentoring process. The first would be that of the mentor, whose job is to be the teacher or the coach. And the second person is that of the mentee, and that is the new member or the person that's being mentored. Now, both the mentee and mentor have to work closely together, and ideally, if they have other common things in their personality or leisure or things like that that are similar, that might create a stronger mentee mentor relationship, as opposed to someone who's been a couple that have been put together at random and with no real thought, and very different personalities, very different learning styles and hobbies. Now, why does Toastmasters promote this type of a learning approach within the organization? Generally speaking, mentorships have strengthened individuals. Both the mentee and the mentor will learn from each other. The mentor will learn new coaching skills, new teaching skills, and potentially learning styles in order to effectively teach the mentee more about the Toastmasters program, while the mentee also gets to learn from the mentor. The mentee gets to learn how to navigate the Toastmasters organization, how to take on different duty roles, how to become a more effective leader and speaker. There are many aspects of the Toastmasters educational program that new members don't quite learn at first. One of which would be that of the alphabet soup. And if you're not familiar with alphabet soup, basically that is all the abbreviations that you will see throughout the Toastmasters program that is changing all the time, especially with the new Pathways program. So now that you have a better understanding of the mentee-mentor relationship, why Toastmasters has designed the mentoring program as an important part of the Toastmasters program, I thought I would share with you all a very brief story of a mentee-mentor relationship that I had. When I was a division governor, I also was the chair of the Toastmasters Leadership Institute for the district. For some of you that are not as familiar with the district, it's a very large area. There are about 170 clubs, and trying to ensure that all the officers get trained can be a rather daunting task and not something that can easily be done. For this reason, I ensured that I had a mentor. And while there were a lot of people that could have been my mentor, I actually had the opportunity to have a past international president of Toastmasters be my mentor. And I learned a lot from her. Not only did I learn about how to run a Toastmasters Leadership Institute, but I also learned a little bit more about the overall Toastmasters program and why it's designed the way it is. I also learned a little bit more about different types of leadership styles and how to interface with other people within the organization. Because no two people have the same communication styles. After all, some people literally use Facebook for everything. If you want to call them, it's best to call them through Facebook. They'll answer their phone almost immediately. If you call them on their regular phone number, you'll probably be waiting a couple of days. Another interesting thing that I learned is just how to motivate people. It's amazing how some people don't really need much in the way of motivation. Just give them a simple task and they'll do it. Other people, sometimes buying them food or trying to coerce them in other ways, get them to volunteer in other ways works a little bit better. And that's something that my mentor also taught me. But I'll leave you with just one final thought. And it's really the crux of why Toastmasters is designed the way it is, which I never really fully understand until my mentor told me. That Ralph Smedley once said that Toastmasters is developed in a way that it is more of a hobby and a place of enjoyment, because after all, people tend to learn the most in moments of enjoyment. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you so much, Lee. I find it interesting, your remark about pizza, because it turns out that the author of the Linux operating system has a quote that says, "I do get my pizzas paid for by Linux indirectly." So, so pizza is definitely a motivating factor for a lot of people. And you are right. I've been fortunate that I've been in a lot of groups that have very, very motivated people that they will always do work for themselves and to do good work for themselves, regardless of what their management notices or even cares about. And that's kind of a rarity among people. Okay, so we've got 2 speakers that have managed to complete their speaking projects. I need to have a timers report. Timer, how did both of our speakers do on their time?
Yes, both speakers qualified on time.
All right, great. So we've had both of them qualify on time. That means both are qualified for a vote tonight. If you would, please cast a vote, and votes are going to go to Mark Sims. Please cast a vote for either Justin or Lee King. Give everybody just a moment to do that. If you would like to write comments to our speakers, you can also write those directly to the speaker themselves, so that those need to be probably, well, you could also send them, I guess, to our vote counter. Vote counter would be happy to pass them on if you need to do that. I'll give everybody just a moment to do that. And while that's going on, I will also mention that the machine that was installed that I showed you earlier, that did not exist before last night. That was all put together last night in about 2 to 2.5 hours. So it's pretty easy to get it installed, get it up and running. You can think of that as from a completely bare disk. That's, if you had a system with Windows on it, you could install over Windows and have this up and running in a couple of hours. So anybody interested? Yeah, call on me. All right, hopefully that's given people enough time to cast their votes and send a few comments. We will now go to the table topics portion of our meeting. Table topics is going to be led by Karen Lee. Take it away, Karen. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster Mark. Tonight, Mark gave me some guidance as far as table topic master, and he said that his guidance was to how to make old things new again. I took that and I decided that I interpreted that to mean that he was talking about recycling. So, and with that, I also do need to remind folks to use the word of the day, which I chose because I was grammarian, is wayworn, which is travel weary. I used that in a sentence and I said, I am wayworn after my appointments yesterday. And there are I have a lot of bottles around here because I've been checking out Smart Water and Propel. And so I have a lot of plastics. And one of the other things I have around here since I went to Office Depot yesterday was a lot of plastic bags with holes in them. because I had too much I was carrying in them. So Rob Giles, how would you recycle plastics?
Thank you, Madam Topic Master. Recycling is something that I've been made a little bit more aware of just over the past month or so. And it was in kind of a negative way, basically saying that, and I think I've seen it on commercials as well, that about 75% of the stuff that we throw into our recycle bin doesn't get recycled, just gets moved on to being trash. As far as what how I would recycle, first thing I would do would be to look at a form that one of our members provided probably a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, could be longer, I guess. John Vessels, he provided a form with all the different types of plastics and what the benefits as far as whether you were going to not recycle and recycle and how they were going to affect the environment. And that would be where I would start. And I would divide everything up according to those, whether they were 6, 5, 4, whatever, all the different numbers for recycling plastic. And then I would proceed to put them in the different categories. I mean, some of those things you have to take to the store. Some of them you can put in your bin. And then other things I think you have to take to special places, special locations to actually get recycled. It may seem like this could cause you to be a little bit wayworn, but I'll tell you, it's worth it if you do it right and do it properly. It allows for the people who are actually working to actually figure out, is this good? Yes. And that happens to be more and more if you do it the right way. So that is what I would do. That's how I would do it as far as recycling plastic. And there's a lot of it out there. There's a lot of it that can be recycled, not all of it, but a lot of it. I recommend that you all do the same thing. Back to you, Madam Topic Master.
Thank you, Rob. When I was working, we had one of the lawyers that was working with me. I worked as a nursing home inspector, and one of the lawyers also worked with the Denton State Supported Living Center. And there was an employee there who took our old yearly calendars that had the pictures on them. This is a 2022 calendar, Easter seals. And that employee would take the pictures, cut them out, and glue them onto, I think, foam board, and made puzzles for the clients that were at the Denton State Supported Living Center. So that's how I would recycle my calendars, take them to Terry. So let's see, John Vessels, tell me about recycling paper.
All right. Thank you, Karen. Well, I have actually just a paper bag by my couch and stuff, and that's where I put all my recycled paper. As I open my mail and things like that, I throw it into the trash there. Things that I'd have to shred that have too much personal information on them that could be a problem for me if somebody got a hold of it, I shred. Now, they don't like to recycle shredded paper, which is crazy to me because the way you recycle paper is by grinding it up and adding it to water and making a slurry and then pulling the water back out and making a new sheet of paper. Go figure, they don't like to recycle shredded paper. But anyway, I create my bag and I fill it up with all the paper that I use that I can get rid of. Also, cardboard boxes, like a cereal box or certain boxes that foods come in, I break those down and I put them all in there too. And we actually have a recycling trash can here at the complex where I live. So I don't have to get wayworn taking it to a recycling facility. So that's how I recycle paper. And I think it works out pretty well, and I feel good about it, not just throwing it in the regular trash and making it mix with everything else. At least give us a chance to do something right. Back to you, Karen.
Thank you. And now what I have here is just a simple bandana. And many times I have seen where you can take, say, these bandanas and fold them in a certain way and make a mask out of them. There's more than one thing that you can do with the bandanas, or maybe some extra material that you have laying around. Tom Tariki, will you talk to us about recycling material?
Sure. Thanks very much. Can you hear me okay, by the way? Can you hear me?
Yes, no problem.
Yes.
Oh, okay, super. All right, so recycling way-worn fabrics. It depends on what fabric you're talking about. We keep a bin in the laundry room, and if it's big enough to be useful, we'll just throw it in there. We have, the most common thing that goes in there is towels. We get lots and lots of towels that get old, hand towels, big bath towels, beach towels, or the little face cloths, whatever they are, throw them in there when they get old, because you can never get enough towels or old towels, rags around the house if you've got something to clean up. That's my preferred. For a long time, I would recycle or save old t-shirts or other old clothes, stuff like that, to use as a rag. But what I found was that we would accumulate so many towels and rags that way that the bin was overflowing, and I didn't really have room. Even though old t-shirts and things like that are really handy because the cloth is nice and soft, that cotton, I found that it really didn't have a lot of value to recycle that stuff. So we just keep a bin by the washer and throw all the old towels in, and the rest goes to the landfill. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Tom. One of the things I am going to show you, I'm going to step back a little bit and get a quilt and show it to you. This particular quilt was made by my grandma. And what she did was she took our old clothes that we had worn when we were kids, and she cut them up and she made this quilt. And I like to wrap myself up in it when I'm cold and go to sleep in it. But all right. So given that, Mark, talk to me. How would you use?
Which Mark?
Yes, which Mark?
Mark Sims, thank you.
And you went mute, Karen. You said, how would I use?
Oh, how would you use old material like that? How would you repurpose?
Yes. Actually, one of the prior examples that you used, Karen, hit home with me because I used some way-worn calendars from years ago that I have on my wall for this year because I had enough that the days were the same. So I simply, obviously not relived that year, but didn't have to spend like 10, 12, whatever bucks for each for a couple of calendars. And also your example of the family quilt hit home with me. I have some of those in my closet that I believe an elderly aunt from some generations ago made that somehow stuck with me all these years that I'll use on the bed during the cold part of the year. And obviously those that has sentimental reason, value as well as practical value. Aside from that, another type of recycling that I use is still have a lot of my comic books from when I was a child. So here lately, I've been going through some of them, rereading them. Obviously, it's a good break from the kind of things that I read during the course of a work day. And those are the best examples I can think of on how I effectively use recycling. Madam Table Topics Master.
Thank you very much, Mark. I was hoping that you all could help me just a little bit. I went to Office Depot yesterday and I bought a calendar, actually two of them. One big desk calendar. And I realized when I was at the store that I was writing some numbers down here. These are aisle numbers, what I was looking for at the Office Depot. But it starts in January 2022. And I needed a calendar like this that started now. So I found one that was smaller that I could actually mount on the wall in the kitchen across from my eraser board. It'll keep me organized. So what would you suggest I do with this? And that question is going to go to Dagan.
Dagan, I'm
Well,
prepared to time you.
I'm talking, yeah, calendar. I mean, many things you can do with a calendar. You know, actually, I have counters. Actually, I have one counter up in the, right when we walk into from our garage. We always enter through the garage and enter through the house that way. We have a counter right there, just, but anything that we need to reminding ourselves on, whether it be, give the heart guard medicine to the dogs, or if you want to change the filter, or any kind of information. Really, mostly my mom uses it because she lives with us. So, but she kind of uses it too, and puts everything to remind herself of things. So that's what a calendar you should use a calendar for. Just do the reminders, and you won't have to be way worn about trying to figure things out. And just use your calendar and put reminders. That's the only thing I use it for. Because I bought those little desktop counters that you peel and flip off. Sometimes they're funny, sometimes they're inspirational. I've gotten those in the past before, but overall they'll just kind of get, I get dull with those really after one point. So I just stopped buying those, and now just like I said, just have that one calendar and that's it. And really mainly use my phone for other things, because really isn't paper counters really kind of out of date now, kind of, if you think about it. With all the good technology. I see John shaking his head no, but but yeah, you got counters nowadays, so just everything's digital nowadays. So really, yeah, I only have one calendar, paper calendar. So back to you, topic master.
You ask if the paper calendar is obsolete. No, I don't think so. I have missed an appointment recently because I have so many things written on my calendars. So now I'm keeping two, one on paper, one on my phone. Okay, well, in summary, everyone used the word of the day. Rob Giles talked first about recycling plastics. John Vessels talked about recycling paper. Thomas, I believe you talked about recycling material. Mark talked about recycling when I brought up the quilt, and he had a lot of different ways that he was going to recycle different things. And Dagan spoke about recycling calendars, or using calendars for reminders. Okay, I'd like to find out, oops, thank you, Rob. Let me ask for a timer's report. Did everybody qualify on time?
Yes, everybody qualified on time.
Okay, all right. So now we need to vote for the best table topic. Give you some time to do that.
Well, I don't know if Ken's going to introduce me, so I'll introduce myself. I'm John, and tonight this is the evaluation portion of the meeting, and I'm your GE for tonight, your general evaluator. I've got a couple of things I'm going to do tonight, and that's going to be evaluating the meeting overall, introduce our evaluators so that they can give an evaluation to our speakers, and then I'll talk to our duty holders and get reports from them. So let's go ahead and start in the middle with our evaluators. And our first evaluator tonight is going to be Mark Sims. Oh yeah, Mark Sims, who evaluated Justin's speech. So Justin, or Mark, will you please give us your evaluation of Justin's speech, sir?
Will. And Justin, I'm going to cover 3 things, or actually much more than that, several things that you did well, some things to work on, and then what could really, really help and build on what you've done. For starters, I liked it that you got right into the content, not a whole lot of preamble. And that's important because people are busy and you got limited time up front to grab people's attention. The speech was supposed to be well organized, and it was well organized. It is very clear what your strengths were, what your weaknesses are. And then you had some key phrases that you repeated, such as the leader needs to know their strengths and weaknesses. A couple of times you used the phrase extremely important, one time loudly emphasizing that. You had to have a good camera presence in that it's calm, it's steady. I didn't notice any unusual gestures. It's good, stable, authoritative is a word that comes to mind. You gave good discussions and described the different strengths and the weaknesses that you have, and in the process gave good self-disclosure about yourself, because obviously we don't see you at work. And this just may be a personal thing, but you brought up the bureaucratic weakness. And boy, after almost a lifetime of career in government agencies, I know about bureaucracies. So, okay, at least one person in the audience totally got it. Some things to work on. There were a couple of so's that started out the sentences that you don't necessarily need them. And one thing you can consider is on some terms defining them. For example, I really didn't know exactly what a scrum master was. If someone at my job called me a scrum master, I might not be able to argue with them, but I might at least pretend like I was offended. So you can keep that in mind. And also, when you were discussing the innovative weakness, the described it almost sounded more like a strength. I mean, generally innovative is something we would all strive to be, but I could see if someone took that to an extreme, how maybe it could backfire. So maybe at least clarify a little better exactly what was wrong in this case of being innovative. And to really excel, I'd say throw in some stories, either about yourself, like you've done really good or bad, or examples you've seen in other leaders. Overall, I think it was a very good speech, and we definitely appreciated it. Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you, Mark. Now the next evaluator for tonight is going to be Dagan Newland, and Dagan is going to be evaluating Lee King's speech. So Dagan, will you go ahead and present your evaluation, sir?
Again, I'm prepared to time.
All right, so I'm evaluating Lee King's speech tonight, and I'm going to use the saw, heard, felt method, which I have not used in a while. So I figured that be good one for this one because Lee is a very seasoned Toastmaster. So I thought this one would be more appropriate for this speech. So first, I really only have one suggestion, and that's going to be in the saw section of this evaluation. But so what I saw was that a good presence for obviously being on this digital platform here. So, but the only thing I would suggest is that we'd probably like to see a little bit more of you. So maybe sit back just a little bit further back, so we can be able to see a little bit more of you, and be able to get some hand gestures in there like that we could be able to see that. Now, what I heard is that you had a very good, well organized speech. about mentoring. You had 4 really good points that kind of went over. The first was, you talked about, the mentor and mentee matchup, who's involved, how they should be matched up. And the second part was you had some really great info about, why TM does mentoring. So that's some really good information you put out on that. And the third part, which was part of the evaluation, was to have a story about being a mentee. And so that was a really good story in itself, about, who was your mentor and how you got matched up with them, and all the really good information that you learned from your mentor. So that was some really good story that you had. And then, of course, then you wrapped it all up with, a final thought and a quote about, from Ralph himself. So I thought that was a really good quote, because, we do learn a lot better when we're kind of in a hobby, enjoyment mode. So that was a good quote. And I guess, pretty much spot on that quote. And what I felt is that this is really kind of more related to myself, but it's the way you presented it, with the information. It made me feel that I have not been really doing a good enough job myself as a mentor, and need to reevaluate myself and do better. So that, of course, that part of your speech, helped me realize what I need to do better. So overall, really great job about mentoring, and really loved it. So back to you, Johnny.
Thank you, Dagan. 2 good evaluations for this evening. Now I need to ask for a timer's report. Did both evaluators qualify on time?
Yes, they did, because I saw it still in yellow. So yes, we did.
Yes, 2:44, Dagan.
Thank you. So if you would take a moment now and vote for the best evaluator for this evening between Mark Sims and Dagan Newland, and send that vote to Mark Sims. So, okay. Now I'm going to do a little bit of evaluation of the meeting tonight on the whole. First off, we started relatively on time. We're just a moment or two late because we were waiting just to make sure anybody coming in would come in if they had a chance to start the meeting. Our meeting tonight had an interesting subject. A lot of people are looking for other software and other computer things, and I personally have Ubuntu on my my Windows laptop, because mostly I use Mac, but I do have a Windows laptop too, and it's got Ubuntu. Now my work laptop has to be Windows 10, but oh well, that's life. So, but I did like your demonstration. I thought it was short enough, but very handy, and give people all the information they need to realize that Ubuntu is not that bad, and it's not some foreign planet, and they can get onto it and use it just like they use Windows 10. I mean, there are some differences, but most of it's fairly intuitive if you've used a Windows computer or any GUI computer nowadays. So that's one good thing. So I thought the presentation was great, and it wasn't too long and wasn't too involved to get people like freaked out about doing something, but you showed them all the basics, and that was good. Maybe we'll have some conversion here one of these days. Next thing, I'm going to talk about table topics. And table topics, I know, Karen, that you didn't really understand where Mark told you the theme of the meeting was, and that's fine, because the table topics you presented was just perfectly fine. It was a good subject. It was good information. You had good questions that went around all the people that were easy to answer, and it was something that's currently going on in our society. So it was something they could grasp and deal with and create good answers for. I mean, the table topics doesn't always have to match the theme of the meeting, so it's all good. So good job tonight doing table topics and the semi-hobby subject and subject matter, and everybody did a good job with table topics this evening. Now for my evaluation portion of the meeting, or me, well, I'm doing okay. So now we're going to go to the duty holders. And our duty holders tonight are Going to be Mr. Giles, you are eye counter and posture monitor.
Thank you very much, Mr. General Evaluator. I will start off with posture, and then I will transition over to the eye counter role and what I heard as far as that was concerned. But what did I see? What did my eyes find happening throughout the meeting? Well, I will say this, that Mark, you had a great prop when you started the meeting. You had Tux right there with, to show us great visual to add to what you were saying, in addition to what you were showing on the screen. So yes, exactly. Dagan, you had one point during, and I think it was during your duty holder description where you did a little mustache twist, I think it was. So you may want to think about that. I think a little bit later you had some point where you were scratching your face. So just kind of keep those things in mind. It may start making us think, is his eye okay? Or, some of those things, or start measuring your facial hair and say, oh, it's off a little bit there. All of a sudden we're not thinking about what you're talking about. So just some things to think about in that regard. Mark Sims, and I don't remember when you said this, but you said on my wall, and I think that you put your hands up in that gesture. Karen, you showed the word of the day during your description, which is great. Always want to do that and make sure that everybody sees it. You also did that throughout table topics, so great job with that. Justin, during your speech, as your evaluator said, you used extremely important. And one of those times you really emphasized it with the use of your hands. So great job with that. You did have gestures that I saw, and this is something that we all have and we struggle with, is that we have gestures, but they happen to be just a bit off screen and we can't see quite what they are. So they don't have the effect. And your evaluator mentioned that as far as stepping back, moving back so that we could see some of those things. Actually, I think that might be the other evaluator who said that, but it's something to keep in mind for all of us. If we're going to be giving a speech or even an evaluation, maybe step back or push our chair back just a little bit. Even for myself right now, I'm finding it difficult to keep my hands up so that you can see the gestures, but something to think about. Lee, when you were giving your speech, you said two people is referring to the, I guess, relationship between the mentor and mentee. And you said the first person, then you said the second person in a relationship. So great job with that. Karen, you were the master of props throughout. You had bottles, plastic bags. You had two different types of calendars. You had a bandana. And I'm sure that I missed a prop in there somewhere, but incredible. You also had some good gestures to go along with that when you were talking about one of your calendars. You said, across from, I think you said your chalkboard, something like along those lines. John used a gesture of throw into trash. You did also scratch your nose at one point, so think about that in the future. And then you said break down and put in there too. I saw those, although it was low, but I saw and got the gesture there. Mark Sims, during your evaluation, no unusual gestures, and I think that you use your hands in regard to that, which is good to represent gestures. You also use your fist to say about being offended, so that was good as far as accentuating that. Dagan, during your evaluation, you mentioned hand gestures for Lee as well. So, and I believe that you brought up your hands when you were talking about that. Tom, during your table topics, you also said throw them in there when they get old. So that was good in reference to the towels. So good job with that. That's my report for posture as far as ahs are concerned, and ums and crutch words. This is what I heard. Mark Schroeder. It seems like we had I think an unusually high volume of some of these things throughout the meeting, and among some of the people who classically do not have as much or as many infractions. But Mark Schroeder, during your time as Toastmaster, I heard 5 uhs. I heard just like. You had a couple of ums. And like is fine. That's something maybe more grammatical, but just some things to think about. Dagan, when you were timer and even past that, just because I have you on one line. You had 5 ums, or I'm sorry, 5 uhs, a couple of ums, which is your crutch, and you know that. You had quite a few of those, more than a handful. Mark Sims, you had a few uhs, and that was during your, I think that was during your duty description. Karen, you had 1 during your duty description. Justin, during your speech, a couple of uhs. You also cleared your throat a couple times. I don't know how to avoid that, other than maybe have a beverage before you start to speak and get some good beverage down the throat so that it doesn't, because I know that if you don't clear your throat, sometimes it's going to make even more noise because you're going to be coughing, you got that little itch, but think about that as well. You had an as well during your speech. Lee, during your speech, again, uncharacteristic, although you may say, is this a crutch or not, but you had and as conjunctions with a lot of different sentences and points. And it wasn't just, and I did this, or and this, and this. It was, and like it was a crutch. You were waiting to find out what that next point was that you were going to make was going to be. So something to think about that. You also a sneeze. How do you avoid that? I don't know, but just wanted to note that. Karen, during your table topics, you had an and an John, this was, I think, during your table topics and your time as general evaluator, you had a few uhs, you had a couple ums, a and an I mean. Mark Sims, during your evaluation, you had an I mean. Dagan, during your evaluation, you had a few uhs. Again, was your crutch within that time frame. And you had a few repeat starts where you would say, I did those types of things at the beginning of the sentence. A lot of times that's when we're trying to get that information out, get it all out, especially when you're in a timed environment. It's tough. Tom, during your table topics, and this will finish up for ahs and ums and other crush words. Tom, during your table topics, you had 1 so, you had an and you had a handful of uhs. So something to think about and something to look at and possibly look at yourself after we have it posted on YouTube. At this point, that concludes my reports. Back to you, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you, Rob. Now let's go on to our grammarian, which was Karen Lee. And Karen Lee, will you give us a report for this evening, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. General Evaluator John. And I heard everyone use the word of the day, weight worn, in table topics. And also, I had listened to Mark Schroeder, and he had some very interesting uses of English language when he said, Windows is a pig. He also mentioned to everyone that Linux is free, emphasizing free. And then Justin, when you did your speech, you mentioned self-aware, Scrum Master. You also said you were self-organizing. And I'll also bring out the same thing that Mark did when he said bureaucratic. And he and I are, I'm retired government employee and he's still a government employee. And you mentioned bureaucratic in detail. You also said that there are rules. You have to follow rules for Scrum. You mentioned being agile a couple of times, adapt to new data. You said incorporate in sprint planning. I think that's what I heard you say, because you have to know how to change quickly. You had some very interesting uses of English language when you were giving your speech. And also, Lee mentioned mentorship. He said the mentor and the mentee learn from each other. That's the way I took it. He mentioned alphabet soup. He also mentioned he had some interaction with the past international president. And I do remember speaking to Pat Shirley, I think it was Pat Shirley one time. And she said she had Pip on her little box, I think one time. And I said, what is a pip? past international president, and that made me think of that. But you also said that Toastmasters is a hobby and to make it something that you enjoy. And I made a note of that. So. Also, Mark, I almost forgot, but you did mention, you and both John and you mentioned Ubuntu, but that's having to do with the Linux, I do believe.
It is one flavor of Linux. There are multiple flavors.
So it's multiple flavors. Okay. Learn something new every day. All right, that's my report. Back to you.
All right. Thank you, Karen. Oh, that is one thing I wanted to point out. Karen, when you went to, as part of General Evaluator, when you moved from you to me, you didn't introduce me. And so I was kind of, you said, well, let's pause for a minute so people can vote. And in real life, we would do that all the time. And then you would introduce me and come to the stage. And tonight you were just, I think she's quiet too long. I went ahead and jumped in. So I didn't know if you're going to introduce me and I cut you off or what, but I went ahead and do that. And so we're in Zoom. Please be sure and hand off roles the same way we do if we were on stage, or as the side.
That was my bad because I didn't know who General Evaluator was and I forgot all about it.
Yeah, that's cool. No, I get it. It's understood. I just wanted to point that out. Be sure we can always hand it off to whoever's coming next. And that's one thing when I don't have the agenda in front of me, sometimes I have to think, okay, who was evaluating who? So, no, I get it. All right, so that is the evaluation portion of the meeting. I'd like to go ahead now and call for a vote of the big three. The big three for tonight are our Toastmaster, Mark Schroeder, our Table Topics Master, Karen Lee, or myself, General Evaluator, John Vessels. So go ahead and send your votes to Mr. Sims by private chat. And now I'd like to hand off the meeting to Lee King, our president. There you go.
All right, not a whole lot of business this evening, just a few things. First and foremost, we do have a new member, Thomas, that we need to vote in. So at this time, I guess, Mark, if you could put him in a separate chat room. This is just formality. Toastmasters International just says that we try to vote people in. That way, if there's problems, they can be voted out. So,
Let me check. Rob, are you planning on doing that or am I?
I can do it.
Doesn't really matter. I just don't want both of us doing it at the same time.
I'll do it. I'll go in there myself.
Where?
This is the moving into the breakout room.
I know.
The virtual room.
Tom, are you in here with me?
I am.
Okay, I just didn't see you. I don't know why.
Oh, huh. I can see you. Are you?
There we go. Yeah, now I see you. I'm sorry. My window wasn't open all the way. All right, so we could probably go back. I think at this point, I don't think.
Hello, I am
We're
in.
good?
We can come back, but
Okay.
we lost the recording in the process.
Oh, okay. Well,
And I'm not sure how.
you know, it started recording here where I am. That's what it is.
The recording followed you.
It did. Yes, I heard it. I heard it.
So do I need to exit this and come
Yes.
join somehow? How do I do this?
Well,
So there's a
we
blue
can-
button in the bottom right. If you click on
it says
leave room, and then it'll give you an option to leave breakout room, and that's the one you want to choose.
Okay. Got it.
Leave,
Thanks.
not leave meeting.
Okay.
All right, let's all go back.
Okay.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, Tom.
Now we're back to being
Yay.
recorded again. All right. So we will go ahead and move forward with just a regular meeting next week. Karen Lee will represent the Club for Humorous Speech, and Mark Sims will represent the Club for Tall Tales. So if you two want to be our speakers next week with the timing, different timing, that would just give you all good time to practice. But we'll just do a regular meeting. There's no point in doing a contest when we're sending one person in each category. The other thing that I just briefly wanted to mention is that, just as a reminder, typically dues are due. However, we are still evaluating the situation with COVID and trying to determine what to do with the dues. Some of that's going to be dependent on what things are looking like with the COVID situation and how long we might be online, because we do try to discount the dues a little bit if we're going to be online, be virtual for an extended period of time. We will have an officers meeting to discuss that next Sunday at 8 o'clock. And anybody's welcome, but we'll make a decision then and we'll email out the final amount that dues are going to cost at that time. I do know that yesterday, so in the past week, the COVID rate has gone up 400%. And I know that actually as of yesterday, Dallas County had a positivity rate of 36.8%. So
Wow.
it's
Oh,
not
no.
going away. It's unfortunately not dying down. I do believe that they're saying that now it looks like people will be able to get that third booster late September. It's September the 20th, I believe, is
I think
when
it's-
people start being eligible for that.
Yeah, I heard it's 8 months after your second shot that you have.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that puts the people who are healthcare workers and the first responders up first.
Right, next month, into next month. Those are all just things to consider, and obviously we'll make a final decision on that later. But that's really all I have. Let's go ahead and get a vote counters report.
Woo.
For the best speaker is Justin Faust.
Hey, Justin.
There you go. Congratulations. Table topics. The best table topics contestant is John Vessels.
Hey, John.
Congrats, John.
Congratulations, John.
Best evaluator is Mark Sims.
Hey.
Thank you all.
Congratulations, Mark.
Thank you. And the best of the big three tonight is Mark Schroeder.
Hey, Mark.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Mark.
Thank you.
And that concludes my report.
All right. Well, then that calls for the end of the meeting. The meeting is now adjourned. Thank you for attending.
I
All
will.
right, from what I can tell, that means that Rob actually has got the recording at this point. It took it away from me. Everybody say goodbye to the audience.
Oh, that's so